What if everything you knew was wrong? The history you were taught, the science you were told to trust, the politics you see unfolding, the psychology that shapes your mind, even the theology that guides your soul. What if none of it is as simple as it seems? Every great story has secrets. Every fact has shadows. And every truth has another side waiting to be uncovered. Here, nothing is sacred. Nothing is off-limit. We dive into conspiracies, hidden histories, and unanswered questions that most people are too afraid to ask. I'll present the theory. You will decide. Argue it, break it, expand it, or prove it wrong. Because theories don't live in silence. They thrive in debate. Welcome to Let's Theorize.
Let's Theorize Science Edition. Fauci operates like the CEO of Big Pharma, not a doctor. Welcome back to Let's Theorize. Today, we're exploring one of the most controversial figures in modern medicine, Dr. Anthony Fauci. The theory: Fauci wasn't just a government scientist. He operated like the CEO of Big Pharma. And if that's true, it compromised the decisions he made for decades. Let's examine 10 cases that support this theory and keep asking the question, doctor or corporate executive? Firstly, longevity equals power. Fauci was appointed head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases in 1984, under President Ronald Reagan. From the height of the AIDS crisis to COVID-19, Fauci advised 7 presidents. Let's theorize. When someone holds power longer than nearly every elected official around them, influence accumulates, and with influence comes compromise. Fauci had the ability to shape research priorities, public messaging, and funding in ways that went far beyond the role of a typical government scientist. Example: during the AIDS crisis, Fauci controlled which experimental treatments received funding. Many small labs struggled to compete, and only certain therapies made it to trials. Decisions that set the stage for decades of influence. Secondly, control over billions in funding. NIAID's budget reached billions annually. Fauci's office had discretion over how these funds were allocated to research projects, hospitals, and universities. Let's theorize. Control over money is control over influence. Scientists dependent on him were unlikely to challenge policies, creating a subtle but powerful incentive system. His role was no longer purely scientific. It was organizational, political, and financial. Example: in 2013, NIAID funded research into coronavirus spike proteins, research that later became central to global vaccine development. Decisions like these illustrate how Fauci's control over money shaped which projects were prioritized. Thirdly, alignment with pharma profits. Critics point out that Fauci's policies often benefited pharmaceutical companies. New patented drugs and vaccines were fast-tracked, while older or cheaper alternatives were marginalized. Let's theorize. A doctor acts to maximize patient outcomes. A CEO acts to maximize revenue. Fauci's patterns suggest the latter played a role. Example: the rapid push for certain COVID-19 vaccines over generic antivirals drew criticism. Some argue the system disproportionately favored treatments with high profit potential. Aligning with the CEO theory framework.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fauci, you were quoted on CBS Face the Nation saying it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci?
I am a scientist who uses the scientific method to gain information.
Yes, you said you represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci? Yes or no? Yes or no?
No, that's not a yes or no answer.
Yes, it's a yes or no.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well, we'll take that as a you don't know what you represent.
Oh,
But this, as director of the NIH, you did sign off on these so-called scientific experiments. And as a dog lover, I want to tell you this is disgusting and evil, what you signed off on, and these experiments that happened to beagles paid for by the American taxpayer. And I want you to know Americans don't pay their taxes for animals to be tortured like this. So the type of science that you are representing.
Fourthly, patents and financial interests. NIAID and its researchers sometimes held patents that were later licensed to pharmaceutical companies. Let's theorize. When the agency recommending treatments also profits from them, neutrality is compromised. This creates a potential conflict of interest, one that aligns with the theory I, that Fauci's responsibilities blurred the line between public health and corporate profitability. Example, some patents held by NIAID involved vaccine, technologies central to the COVID-19 response. While these technologies saved lives, critics argue that Fauci's structural financial ties represented a compromise. Fifthly, media presence. Quack brand management. Fauci became a household name during COVID-19, appearing on television, in newspapers, and on social media. Let's theorize. Media attention creates pressure to maintain a flawless public persona. A doctor admits mistakes freely. A CEO manages reputation strategically. Fauci's constant visibility and the positive media framing of his persona strengthened his influence but may have compromised scientific neutrality. Example, frequent appearances reinforced public trust, but also made retractions or admissions of uncertainty politically costly. This illustrates the tension predicted by our theory, doctor versus CEO. Sixthly, the revolving door effect. The pharmaceutical industry and government agencies often share personnel. Lobbyists, executives, and officials circulate between roles, creating a network of interdependence. Let's theorize. Fauci's long-term position within this ecosystem meant that his decisions were influenced, directly or indirectly, by the people around him. A CEO embedded in a corporate network naturally prioritizes business interests. Fauci's network mirrors this dynamic. Example, collaborations with organizations like the Gates Foundation, WHO, and major pharmaceutical companies illustrate how decisions are intertwined with global corporate and political networks. Seventhly, suppression of alternatives. Cheaper or off-label treatments were often dismissed. Let's theorize. That's a CEO move, not a doctor move. Imagine if during lockdowns, Fauci had said, actually, fresh air and exercise are great medicine. Nope. Instead, parks closed, beaches closed, but somehow liquor stores stayed open. Makes sense if you're protecting profits, not if you're protecting health. At eighthly, emergency power to compromised authority. Crises gave Fauci more authority. Let's theorize. A doctor's goal is to resolve emergencies. A CEO thrives when the emergency keeps demand high. Fauci's prominence always grew during crises. Remember the 6-foot rule? Not 5 feet, not 7, 6. It sounded scientific, but it was about as precise as the rule that said, you could take your mask off at the table, but had to wear it while standing. If that doesn't scream compromise, I don't know what does. Ninthly, global reach, global compromise. Fauci worked with WHO, global initiatives, and international partners. Let's theorize. Serving multiple masters means you can't serve one with full neutrality. A doctor serves the patient in front of them. A CEO serves the network. And maybe that's why the restrictions never felt consistent. You could fly across the world with 200 strangers, but your kid's classroom Christmas party was canceled for safety. That's not medicine, that's bureaucracy. Tenthly, the untouchable legacy. Fauci retired on his own terms. No president, no oversight committee forced him out. Let's theorize. That's the independence of a CEO, not a public servant. He walked away when he decided, after shaping decades of health policy. For the rest of us, we had to walk in one-way arrows down the grocery aisle like it was a Pac-Man maze. Who really had the power here?
Blue states banding together, filing a lawsuit challenging RFK Jr.'s moves to streamline 28 HHS divisions into 15, laying off 10,000 HHS employees on top of the others who voluntarily left at the beginning of the year. Now, this in addition to the big announcement today with the president officially banning the controversial, exceedingly dangerous gain-of-function research. That's what makes viruses more lethal in research settings. Remember, COVID-19 originated in the Wuhan lab, which was engaged in gain-of-function research, partly and directly funded by the National Institutes of Health. Isn't that great? It's insane.
This is an historic day, the end of gain-of-function research funding by the federal government and also controls by private corporations on gain-of-function studies.
It's a big deal. It could have been that we wouldn't have had the problem we had.
A lot of people say that, sir.
If we had this done earlier.
Here with me exclusively is HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us. How do we know with this ban, which is long overdue, will be effective given the fact that we know illegal attempts will occur, which makes it even perhaps more dangerous?
Yeah, I want to congratulate you because you were the first person on national TV when you interviewed Dr. Fauci to raise the issue of the link between his gain-of-function studies and what happened in Wuhan with the COVID pandemic. As you pointed out, gain-of-function studies are the kind of science that is designed to make microbes and pathogens more virulent, more transmissible, and more deadly. It was in this country, they started doing it in 1947, the military and the intelligence agencies, in order to develop bioweapons. In 1969, President Nixon banned it all, shut down Fort Detrick, shut down all the labs. That ban, and then signed the Bioweapons Convention. That ban lasted till 2001. And after the anthrax attacks, Anthony Fauci essentially restarted the arms race and the bioweapons arms race, and did it under the pretension of developing vaccines because of the same science that you develop bioweapons and vaccines. In 2014, 3 of his bugs escaped, and 300 scientists wrote letters to President Obama asking him to shut down Anthony Fauci. President Obama declared a moratorium, but instead of shutting down his experiments, he moved them offshore, mainly to the Wuhan lab. And now, the principal institutions of our government, the CIA, the FBI, the State Department, Department of Energy, all say that it is most likely that those experiments resulted in the COVID-19 pandemic beginning in 2019. So President Trump today moved to shut down this kind of research in this country and to stop funding it abroad.
Do you think this is the reason that Anthony Fauci was given a pardon by Joe Biden, and that in some way is linked to this gain-of-function funding?
I don't know what was going on in Joe Biden's head, but I think that Anthony Fauci probably asked for that pardon, knowing that he had some liabilities here that were more than reputational. They were legal liabilities.
Conclusion. When you piece it all together, Fauci's influence looks less like the work of a neutral doctor and more like the playbook of a CEO. Power, profit, and reputation all carefully managed. The theory that he acted as Big Pharma's CEO explains not only his decisions, but the bizarre restrictions we all lived through. Let's theorize. When medicine and money collide, can we trust the rules are really about health, or are they just corporate policy in disguise? Closing call to action. What do you think? Was Fauci America's doctor, Big Pharma's CEO, or maybe both? Comment below with your thoughts, subscribe for more. And remember, every question deserves to be asked, and every theory deserves to be explored. Right here on Let's Theorize.